This is The Other 51. I'm Brian, and this week my guest is Donna Ditota from Syracuse.com. My guest this week is a sports writer for the Syracuse.com and the Post-Standard. She is a St. Bonaventure graduate, so I'm sure we will talk a little bit about that. But most importantly, she was recently named the New York State Sportswriter of the Year, the first woman to ever win that award. Well-deserved. Can't believe it took this long to award both Donna Ditota and a woman that award for anyway. But Donna, welcome to The Other 51.
Thank you. I think I don't think it's national. I think it's the first woman in New York State.
Yes, first woman in New York State. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You think 2022? Come on, right?
Right. And so as we get started, happy Bona Pride Day as we're talking today.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Thank you. And as a personal self-serving note, thank you to you're a member of the advisory committee that helped create the sports journalism master's degree that I guess I run, which is weird to say, but I appreciate your support on that. And so on this Bona Pride Day, we got to talk about it. It's required. We're two alums. What is it about Bonaventure and the Bonaventure J School specifically? I mean, what is so special about it for you, and how did it help you in your career?
Well, St. Bonaventure to me is this sort of encapsulates the entire field of St. Bonaventure for me, right? I went to college. I graduated in '83, so it's been a long time since I was in college. My closest friends, some of my closest friends are people I went to St. Bonaventure with. And we hang out together all the time. We text during basketball games. It's just a place where, a lot of my beliefs and a lot of my just my outlook on the world was kind of formed during those 4 years, and I'm forever appreciative. And as you know, like if you see somebody from St. Bonaventure and you didn't go to school with them, or you have no idea who they are, when you see them and they have a Bonnie sweatshirt on, you're immediately going up to them and chatting them up. So it's just the way it is. I don't know if there's something magical about it. I don't know what it is, but I'm glad it exists.
It is absolutely, and my wife, who is not a Bonaventure grad but is married into it and now fully invested in it, she gets I'm wearing a Bonaventure hat, and like, did you go to Bonaventure? And she's like, oh, geez, this is 20 minutes lost to our day.
Right.
So you were there, and I'm very interested in this personally. So you were there when Russel Jandoli was there and teaching, and he's the namesake of the school, of the Jandoli School of Communication. So I'm always interested. Tell me about him. What was he like as a professor? What was he like as a figure on campus? What did you learn from him?
He was, I don't know, kind of a mysterious guy. I mean, I think I only had him from one class, and he was very quiet, small man. And, I just think he had this sort of aura about him. I can't say that I knew him well at all. And I can't say that I recall anything about any class I ever took with him. But he was an interesting figure in that he had sort of a certain presence, even though he was a tiny little guy.
Mm-hmm. When you came to Bonds, I know you were a basketball player too, and I do want to ask about that. Did you go knowing you were going to be a journalism major?
Yes.
Okay. So is this something you always wanted to do?
Yes.
Okay. How did that start?
Well, it was good. I like to read, I like to write, and I was an athlete. So it just seemed as if, and I was a daily devourer, as our entire family was, of newspapers. We got a morning newspaper, we got an evening newspaper, we watched the news all the time. Mm-hmm. So we were just news people. And so it just seemed as if that would be kind of a perfect little marriage of all of my interests.
I'm curious too, because you played basketball at Bonaventure back in the early 80s. How much does that experience, and having been a college athlete, and you've been covering college sports for, I think most of your career, how does that inform your coverage, and does it still years later?
I was just asked this recently, and I think one of the things, I'm 6'1", right? So I'm a very tall woman. And back in the day when women were not particularly accepted as sports journalists, it helped me to have stature. I was tall, and I think I was, and I certainly know basketball, and I know a lot of other sports. And I think being tall and just being able to talk the talk really helped me. Okay. And it's helped me over the years to cover sports because I know what it's like to make a winning shot. I know what it's like to miss a winning shot. I know what it's like when your team is losing, what that atmosphere is like in the locker room, and how it pervades every area of your life. I know how happy everybody is when you're winning. And it's just, and I know how steeped in sports college athletes are. It's so important to their daily lives. And so I think I bring a certain empathy in that sense. And that I sort of understand what it's like to be a college athlete. I understand all the pressures of it. Certainly none of the pressures that are on the athletes these days with social media and the constant hounding by fans of these kids. But I understand most of what they're going through.
And I'm curious about that. You said the word empathy, and I know that has come up in several interviews, and especially that's a very thing I think we try to do at Bonaventure to bring it back, is that sense of empathy, and that's the Franciscanism of the university. But I've often thought that that's one of those kind of sneaky journalism skills or beliefs that you have to have, right, as a reporter, is kind of empathy for the story you're telling, for the people, for the audience, for everybody. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you get into stories where you're talking to people who have very personal things to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's some of them are difficult things for them to say, and some of them it's difficult for you to hear. And I think just being sort of kind and empathetic and in the moment helps sort of to sort of build trust with people you're talking to, and it helps just in the journalistic process and just in general. It just you get a feel for people, and I don't think anybody wants to see people fail, but when people do fail, I think it's important to sort of come from a place that you understand what's going on, and that you're not just hammering them for details about why they missed a shot or why they stole something at the grocery store, whatever it is.
Right. So as we mentioned at the top, you are the New York State Sportswriter of the Year for the year. Congratulations. That's pretty awesome. What was your reaction when you found out?
I was thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
I'm extremely uncomfortable talking about it, honestly. I mean, and everybody always says, well, you don't get into journalism for the awards, and you don't. It's nice to get them. But it's really, and I don't mean to, I'm thrilled that I got it. I really am. I was thrilled. I got a call from Dave Gorin, who is in charge, and he told me, and I was extremely appreciative, and I still am extremely appreciative. But it's just I've talked about it a lot over the last week or so, or 2 weeks, and I'm kind of ready to move on to the next topic,
All right. I was just curious, did you submit a group of stories for it, or is it?
No, I didn't do anything. It was a complete and utter. I have no idea how it happened. I have no idea how. I don't know what the process is like. I submitted nothing. I just got a call that said that you were the New York State Sportswriter of the Year. I think there's a panel with the organization that determines who is nominated, and then who determines who wins.
Okay. So let's go back in time a little bit. So you graduate from Bona's 1983. It's now 2022. Trace your career path. So you graduate from Bona's. Where do you kind of walk me through your career up until now?
I came back home to Syracuse, and I got a job at a business magazine because I needed to have a job, and I couldn't find a job in sports journalism. And so I was there for a couple of years, and all during that time I was sending out resumes to try to get a sports job. And I finally, through the absolute and utter badgering of poor Rosemary Robinson, who was a Bona grad, who was a deputy managing editor or whatever her title was back in the day. I would just constantly say, hey, I'm still looking for a job in sports journalism, and I still want to come work for the Post-Standard or the Herald Journal. And so finally, they brought me in. I got an interview, and I got a job there, and I've been there ever since.
Gotcha. So what was your first sports job there? Was it colleges, or was it something?
We had a bureau. Back then we had two gigantic newsrooms. We had a Post-Standard newsroom. We had a Herald Journal newsroom. And these newsrooms were huge. We had a ton of reporters. And we had a regional bureau, which did all kinds of news and sports in the various, in Cayuga. We're in Onondaga County. It was in Cayuga County, Oswego County, and I believe Madison County.
Okay.
So I did regional sports for those. I did some minor league baseball. I did a lot of football. I did a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I was there for maybe about a year, and then I moved over to the Herald Journal, and I can't remember if I covered high schools, but pretty soon after that I started covering basketball. I started covering Syracuse's men's basketball team, and I was there. I did that for a number of years, and I got off that beat for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. Did some lacrosse. I've done the Bills. I've done a whole bunch of stuff, and then I came back to basketball maybe 10 years ago or so. I don't know. Okay. It's all a big blur to me, Brian.
I get that. So Can you tell us about that experience of being a sports writer, of a woman sports writer back in the 80s when it wasn't, maybe it was, that was an interesting time. I was younger back then, but it was growing in acceptance, but it wasn't, it was like that bridge time between, you know, I'm not saying there's no sexism now. Of course there is. We saw that
Yeah.
on Twitter yesterday. But what was that like for you to get a job and kind of work in sports journalism in, you know, a place like Central New York in the 80s and early 90s?
Yeah, you know what? I know that maybe I'm just have PTSD from all the experience. There was all kinds of stuff that happened, like, you know, how different coaches would refer to you, you know, and didn't, you know, nobody would ever believe that I was a reporter and all this. But for the most part, and then, you know, there were some athletes who did not treat me all that well. But for the most part, like the overwhelming majority of it was completely and utterly normal. Like it was like a regular, you know, like my job right now is pretty normal. I don't like it, you know, for the last 20 years or so, nothing really dramatic has happened in terms of the gender situation. But, but you know, in the beginning, it was trying to convince people that I knew what I was talking about. And again, I'm a tall, pretty assertive woman, and that didn't take all that long. And I'm not a particularly fearful person, so you know, it wasn't a huge deal. It honestly wasn't. There was during the early few years of my career where the whole Lisa Olson incident happened.
Sure.
And then there was a lot of discussions. Lisa Olson, for those of you who don't know, and I don't know why you would, but she was a woman who covered I believe the Patriots, and something sexual happened in the locker room. And there was it was like a huge deal. So then there was a lot of news organizations determining how and when women would be in the newsroom. And so in the early days, this is literally what would happen. Like the games would end, the guys would go in the locker room, and I would have to stand out in the hallway, and they would bring a player out to me back then during deadline time. And it was just so ridiculous. So, you know, it got better. And I was fortunate enough to be here, for whatever you think about Jim Boeheim, and for whatever every reporter thinks of Jim Boeheim. Early in my career, he had called me in and said, there was all this controversy about should we be in locker rooms and should we not. He's always had an open locker room. He had always allowed me in his locker room. So he called me in and asked me, you know, like, do you want to be in the locker room, or how are you comfortable? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. So he's like, okay, good. You're in the locker room. That was it.
Oh, awesome.
And so I had never had a problem with the primary beats that I covered. Like everybody that I covered, you know, was pretty amenable, and, you know, had no problem with me being in the locker rooms, or me just being a woman covering their sport.
Yeah. So you mentioned Boeheim. You've covered him for a long time. There's a good smile on her face right now if you can't see it on audio. And I always ask, you know, I asked Mike Waters when I had him on. I've asked anybody who's covered him for the DO. Because he's so kind of known nationally, and he's kind of got the Jim Boeheim personality. Tell us about what he's like to cover day to day. And you've been doing it for a while. So what's he like, and how has he changed? How has he stayed exactly the same? Like, what's Boeheim like to cover?
He's pretty much the same. He hasn't changed a whole lot over the years. I mean, you know, for all the gruffness and all of the outward huffing and puffing that he does, and he does a lot of that, he's great to cover for a couple of different reasons. He says what he says. He's not afraid of any kind of repercussions for what he says. He's not afraid to say anything, really. He says what he says. He'll tell you what he thinks about something. He calls you back when you call him up to ask about something. He has an open locker room. He has a which is rare. You know, all the like Coach K has one. Rick Pitino had one. All the old school coaches have open locker rooms, which is for reporters, as you know, a gold mine. You know, it is, because you can, after the games, you can talk to any player you want in that locker room, which the coaches, whoever you want. And you know, you can talk to players during the week if you want. So the access to his players is amazing, and he's just interesting. There's a lot, you know, he says a lot of interesting things. You know, I would much prefer to have to deal with his moodiness to get to all these other things, to trade for all these other things that I just talked to you about.
Yeah. And that open locker room, especially in college sports these days, is almost unheard of.
Exactly.
And why, and you mentioned it a little bit, but it's something that's always in the news, always kind of in, you know, our media news, I should say, and always something that, you know, especially now not coming out of COVID, but as COVID enters year 83 or whatever we're into, and restrictions, and we're talking about access and Zoom interviews and all of that. Why is, for you and for sports journalism, why is that open locker room, why does that matter so much?
It matters because you can, like I said before, I'm able to talk to whomever I want after the game. It may, we cover with Syracuse's basketball team quite a bit. So we do a lot of sidebars. We do a lot of looking ahead. You can spend that time in the locker room talking to players who might not play that much, or who you might be working on a big feature and you need to talk to a different guy on the team than the guy who was either a star of the game or what have you. Having those locker rooms open is super important to just doing our jobs, to having access to information, to having access to the people that we cover. And, I am fearful of a time when that won't be the case, when there won't be open locker rooms and you're going to have to, they'll bring a player or two out. I mean, bringing a player or two out is better than having it on Zoom, which is the absolute worst. There's nothing worse than the Zoom interviews. They are absolutely the bottom of the barrel worst. So bringing a couple guys out or a couple women out are better than that. But the best thing is being able to talk to whomever you want, whenever you want, and being able to sort of, because these are the times too where you start to build relationships with players. You start to, you might talk to a guy that you might not be writing about today or tomorrow, but you might have a conversation and something might come up and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll explore that down the road. There's a whole bunch of things that happen during these interactions that might not have anything to do necessarily with the story you're going to write that day or the day later, but in the future are extremely important.
So why are the Zoom interviews? Why are they the worst?
Because you only get one guy, you only get one question.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not like you can, they don't go on forever. You have it's maybe a 7 or 8 minute window, and that's it. You talk to whoever you get, and it's awkward. There's a whole bunch of people in their little boxes, and it's just really bad. There's not a single sports writer that I know that likes them. We all think they suck.
What makes a good story for you? Like, what are you looking for when you're looking for a story?
It depends. I personally like writing profiles, and I do write not a lot of them. I write a decent amount of them, and I find them to be fascinating. I'm trying to find out who these people are, and trying to then puzzle together after I get some information what I'm going to write about them. What makes a good story is something that I find interesting. I'm a pretty curious person, and if I see something or I hear something, I think, wow, that's cool, or that's interesting. Like, how did that happen? If it piques my curiosity, then that's a good story. Anything that I find interesting or find different or find unusual, or even just something, I guess it's just something that it's all personal, but something that you find interesting.
So the profile, I think that's a fun place to spend a few minutes. So going off of that answer you just had too, what makes somebody worthy of a Donna Ditota profile? You got a roster, you got somebody playing well, you got a list of players. How do you figure out that this person is worth profiling? Let's start there.
Well, I just finished a profile about a guy named Jesse Edwards, who is the center on Syracuse's basketball team. He is from Europe. He grew up in the Netherlands and was born and raised in the Netherlands. And he's very late coming to the game of basketball. He went from a season where he played 8 minutes a game and averaged 2 points a game to a season where he's averaging 30 minutes a game and is averaging 12 points a game. Okay. He's a super interesting guy. Just his background is interesting. I've talked to a few people about him before, but I just think that, where he got from where he was as a little kid in the Netherlands to where he is now on the cusp of becoming a breakout ACC star is interesting to me. Okay. And so that's the exploration that I did with that story.
All right, so let's walk through that process. I know has the story run yet as we're talking?
It's going to run Monday, so I don't know when this is going to run.
Excellent. So we'll throw a link to it in show notes. So let's walk through. You got the spark of the idea. You want to write about Jesse Edwards. You kind of got this general idea of it. Next steps. How do you report it out? How do you kind of walk us through that story?
Next step was I needed to talk to him. Okay. So initially I talked to him on the phone. Usually in non-COVID days, I would go up to the Mello Center where Syracuse's practices and sit down with him and talk to him for a half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it is. And I talked to him, and then I talked to a whole bunch of other people. I talked to his brother in the Netherlands. I talked to his trainer in the Netherlands. I talked to his position coach. I talked to his roommate. Who else did I talk to? And then I went back and re-interviewed him. Okay. Because there were things that had come up that I was unaware of, and went back and re-interviewed him. Okay. And then I had to I'm a big transcriber. I record everything. Everything everybody I talk to, I record and I transcribe everything. And so then I transcribed many minutes of interviews, and I like to print them out if I'm working on a long story. That's the only time I do any print. Well, not the only time, but if I'm working on a long story or a complicated story, I like to print out my notes, print out the stuff my interviews, and then kind of figure out how I'm going to piece it together from there.
Okay. I do think it's interesting, the re-interview. I think something as somebody who teaches that's one thing that is an important skill that I don't think a lot of reporters think of, is the going back to, like, you do your interview or however long with your main subject, but then you go back because you interview, the follow-up interview. That can be super important and time willing, of course. But I think that's one of those, I don't want to say lost art, because I don't know if it was ever found or if it's a lost art, but it is one of those things that I don't think a lot of that students don't necessarily think of, I should say.
Well, I think a lot of it, like you said, is time sensitive. I mean, if you got to get it up, if you've got your editor banging on you, like, we need to get this done, then you don't have the time, or if the person's not available, whatever. But I was fortunate enough that I had a long enough leash that I said, this whole thing probably took about, it probably took maybe 8 or 9 days. And this is happening while I'm covering games and while I'm writing other stories about other things. So it took a few days of work, and then it was initially going to run Thursday, this past couple of days, and then we pushed it to Monday. Okay. So it's been written for a while. But I did say to my editor, like, I need some time to work on this story. Mm-hmm. I can't do like that, whatever else, there's a lot of responsibilities for beat writers, and I couldn't do whatever my other thing were that I would normally be doing for a Monday was when I wrote it, this past Monday. So I spent all of Monday writing the story, so that's it. Yeah.
And you did just mention the responsibilities of a beat writer, and can you walk through, like, covering at Syracuse for the local website, paper, media outlet, I guess we'll call it these days. And you and Mike Waters cover it together, and Mike has been a guest on the show before. What are those responsibilities? I mean, what does a week in the life of an ACC beat writer look like?
It depends on how many games there are.
Okay.
Because we cover every game. So there's a lot of their coverage is dependent upon what happens in the games, is reactionary to what happens in the games. Like next week, I think there was a midweek game. If there's a break between games, like if there's a Saturday game they don't play until the next Saturday, then you can get a little more creative and you can try to come up with some ideas that you have been wanting to do but haven't had a bunch of time to do. But during the season, a lot of it is just reactive to games, or reactive to injuries, or reactive to what Jim may have said about something, so it's you never know what you're going to be doing. I mean, there are certain things that you have to do, like, Mike has a Mike's mailbox. I vote on the AP top 25 poll, so like on Monday I vote on the top 25. My top 25 poll, the AP poll comes out, and I write about that. Mike does his mailbox on Thursday. Those are the only two really set things we do during the week, and the rest of it is all pretty game specific.
Okay. I used to vote in the top 25. How do you do that? What's that like for you?
I do. For the most part, I really like it because it keeps me on top of games. I watch a lot of games, and I see a lot of teams that I normally wouldn't see. It's extremely time consuming because I do keep I'm really old school. I think I have this on my desk right here. I have like every team in the top 25 on this notebook, and every week I put the scores in of who won, who lost, and then so it's time consuming. And then the fun thing is when all the fans of the teams that you didn't pick number one come after you on social media and complaining because you picked their team 9th instead of 4th or something like that. So that's fun.
I'm lucky. I'm glad I did it before Twitter because I think it would have been very interesting. So transcribing, you mentioned that it's the worst, right? I mean, it's necessary and it's good, but it's the worst. Yes.
It's the worst.
So why is it something, I want to say why you do it, because obviously you do it, but what value comes from that time? Like what makes that investment in doing this thing, which is the worst, so valuable?
Because it really helps inform it reminds me of what was said in the interview. Okay. Number one, I'll replay it, and when I'm typing and retyping out, I think, oh my God, I forgot he said that. Or, this is something like this is something I should re-ask him about. I didn't follow up on this all that well or whatever. And it gives me a good sense of what I know and what I might not know. And then it just, when I type it out and when I print it out, then I can mark up the pages. Here's the Jesse Edwards notes. I have marked up the certain passages here that I found to be, I'm either going to use it as a lead, or I'm going to end the story this way, or I'm going to, this is definitely going to get in, this is definitely not going to get in, or whatever. It helps to structure my story.
Right. I learned, I just did a magazine piece in the past month, and I was transcribing and remembering how great and awful it is. And I learned that Microsoft Word on the web will transcribe, will do automatic transcription.
I keep hearing that, and then I keep hearing other friends who have tried it and said it sucks. So I don't know if
it's not,
okay.
It would be great for like a reference or something else, but I tried it and like, it's okay. And probably like in a pinch, but yeah, it's all of the transcriptions. Like they're not as good as doing them.
And as tedious and time consuming as it is, Ryan, to me, it's worth it just to listen to the interview over again, to listen to what the people said over again, to just refresh my memory about what we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So what is your favorite event that you've ever covered?
Oh God. I'll tell you one of the weirdest things that I ever covered that was super cool.
Yeah.
So years ago, remember when they were doing those games on the battleships?
Yes.
So Syracuse played in San Diego. I can't believe I can't remember who they played. But the game got delayed, first of all, because it had rained the night before. So there was mist on the court, or there was going to be mist on the court or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then the game was played. And so we were sitting on this battleship with this court there, and it was super windy. I mean, beyond windy. So like guys were trying to shoot jump shots from like 10 feet away, and they were like sailing off. So it was just like nobody took any 3-pointers because you couldn't make one. I mean, it was so ridiculous, and so there I was like in this baking in this sun of San Diego and just watching this crazy game where, people had to improvise as to how they were going to play on this battleship.
I love that they let you on the battleship to cover it.
That's
impressive.
Oh yeah. We got to walk around the battleship and, go in the cockpit. And I mean, it was just nutty. It was just so like completely alien to any other kind of sporting event I have probably ever covered. I wish I could think of some more. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years, so I'm sure there are plenty of rando stuff that I've done that I just don't recall, That's just the first thing that leapt to my mind.
So a very dumb question from somebody who's never covered a game on a battleship. Battleship is obviously big enough to hold a regulation basketball court. So it's
they're huge.
Yeah. It's in the water. It's obviously anchored. Is it moving at all? Is it like you're in a boat? Okay.
I don't recall it moving. It just the wind was so prevalent and so gusty,
Okay. And my other standard question for a Syracuse writer is your favorite Jim Boeheim story from the years.
I don't think I have a favorite Jim Boeheim story. I mean, I get along well with Jim.
I was gonna say it could be a good.
I don't have a, I get who he is. I get everything about it. I don't think I have a favorite story. I'm not like, it's so funny because people keep asking me all these questions, like, what was your favorite story? What was the favorite story you ever wrote? What was your favorite this? And I'm not like a favorites person. Like, I'm a forward looking person. Like I do my thing and I'm like, what's next? Do you know what I mean?
Right. You got a Jeb Bartlett about you. I like that. So what is next? I mean, kind of, we'll spend it that way. What are you what types of stories, or what are you looking forward to writing to in the next couple years?
Well, the good thing is in the off season, I get to do a little bit of everything. Like last year, I got to write about a novel that was set in Syracuse. So I get to, my editors are very nice at saying to me, like, she needs a break, or I say that I need a break. I can't write another basketball story. So they will allow me to do other kinds of things. Like a couple of years ago, or last year, the 100-year anniversary of women getting the vote, I went to Seneca Falls and did a bunch of stories there. Nice. So you just never know what's going to happen in the off season. I will not be doing anything as a basketball. Well, actually, I'm going to cover some lacrosse this year too, I guess. Okay. And then after that, I'll have a summer. I cover TBT every year, the basketball tournament. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I'm going to do after that. I mean, I'll find after the season ends, like I'm not sure if your listeners understand how all encompassing covering a beat is.
Yeah, please tell them about that. Yeah.
All, you don't get days off. Or if you do get a day off, you spend so much time catching up on the rest of your life that it doesn't seem like a day off, So it's just all consuming. There's always stuff that goes on, always stuff that happens. You're traveling, you're leaving early to get to airports, you're coming home late, it's just a constant drum of work. Mm-hmm. So when you're immersed in a basketball season or in your beat, whatever your beat is, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, whatever it is, you're just there, you're in that beat, and there's not a whole lot of planning to do until when the season ends. You might think of it like, sometimes I think of an idea and I'll put it in my phone, in the notes part of my phone. I'll say, oh, that's a cool idea. Maybe that's something I want to come back to. But for the most part, during the season, you're just grinding on what's next, the next day, the next week, whatever it is. Like, I'm covering a game tomorrow. That's what I'm doing tomorrow.
Right. So how do you kind of keep, I don't want to say sane because that's not the right word, but how do you keep like a balance? How do you keep healthy doing that, especially for so long? Because that's gotta, not a lot of days off, traveling a lot. Like, how do you
I run, which is nice because I get a little, a boost from that a little, we walk, I have a dog, I have a longtime boyfriend. We've been together for 11 years. So, we have a lot of pastimes. We have, there's things to do in your, just things that you do in your life, really. I mean, it's hard during the season to really decompress or unplug because you just can't do it. It's just, It's not possible. So you just try to pick your little moments to go out to dinner or go for a run or, go to a brewery, whatever it is that you do,
Little disappointed the dog's not on the podcast, but I'll forgive it because mine are downstairs too.
Tucker. I don't know where he is right now. He's my 11-year-old golden retriever who thinks he's 6 or 4. I mean, he still runs around. He's got crazy energy, that dog.
Aw. So I ask everybody I have on, so I'll ask you this. What's the best thing that you've read lately?
I'm a big book reader, but I haven't read any books that I would say lately, like, wow, that was great. I read a lot of stuff in the New Yorker, but I can't think of anything in the New Yorker that I could say, you have to read this. You're catching me in a bit. I don't know. I don't have a good recommendation for you. Sorry, Brian.
No worries.
I can text you if I think of it. I'll text you something.
Sounds good. All right, Donna, this has been awesome. Congratulations on your award, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, Brian. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Show notes for this and all of our episodes can be found at sportsmediaguide.com by clicking on the Other 51 tab. If you like the show, please consider giving it a rating and a review, either at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help people find the show. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz.